So really quick, just so we can unite on how terms are used, bias, a prejudice of in favor against one thing, person, or group compared with another. Again, everything around bias is a learned behavior, is inherited from our family members, and it becomes unconscious. You will often hear unconscious bias referred to as blind spots, and it really gets into um, judgments and decisions that are deeply affected by how we've been programmed as we've grown up in this country. Decisions that play and how it impacts decisions that play a significant role in recruiting and hiring. Racism. I put the Merriam-Webster definition: a belief that a race is the primary determinant of human traits and capacities, that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Number two, a doctrine or political program based on the assumption of racism and designed to execute its principles. And be a political or social system founded on racism. So this can be a training unto itself, but the working definition that we're going to use that differentiates racism from prejudice or bias is that racism in this country is a social construct that was directly created to determine who owns land, who can acquire wealth. Those are the primary ways that wealth began in this country, and why there are systemic disadvantages, particularly for African Americans or people of color, because this country was organized by categories of race with no real scientific proof of characteristics, inferiority, intelligence. So that's that's more of a social justice connotation. And for the purposes of what you're looking for today, that is going to be the main differentiating factor, is that racism is really around giving wealth, power, and privilege to one group of people over another. And so the question always comes up, well, can Black people be racist? Can people of color be racist? The understanding that I'm going to share with you is directly connected to political power and wealth and who holds it. So as a Black woman, I can be prejudiced, I can be biased, I can be bigoted, but because my people are not in the majority of elected representatives across the United States, they are not the majority in terms of how laws are written and communicated, and in terms of controlling wealth and institutions that determine quality of life, banks, hospitals, schools. We are not in control of those things. So we can be prejudiced, but we can't be racist. And we're okay to disagree, but that's kind of the working understanding, because sometimes folks will get into debates about who's racist and who's not. But it's all around a system of economic privilege and power. So levels of racism. So we talked about, often when we think about individual racism, we're thinking about interactions like somebody telling a racial joke or believing the inherent superiority of whites over others, avoiding people of color that you know personally, or things like police brutality, individual incidences where one race that is considered superior exerts power over another race. So that is usually the connotation when we start talking about racism. But as we know, it impacts everything else in our society. And then from the vantage point of people who are in the majority, accepting things as they are. This is the way things have always been. Why is this an issue? Why do we have to discuss race? So that is individualized racism.